Alright guys, welcome back. I've been away for a while, have a lot of things going on in life, and stepped away from slot cars for a little while here and been racing RC cars, but our normal season is quickly approaching and I was thinking of some new things to show you guys. So I'm going to do at least a couple of these videos where we focus on kind of some scratch built chassis and maybe give you guys some ideas of how to build cars similar to this or just in general. So this is the first one up. This is probably my most successful racing car. I didn't build it. It was built by a local legend here named Bob McFarland. You can find him kind of everywhere online and in race records. He had cars that won kind of all over the world and certainly was dominant here in the Northwest, especially on a couple of the tracks that we frequent. He was a super avid builder. Many unique designs came off of his bench, and unfortunately he passed away recently. And this was a car that was in the estate that the club had purchased, and when I was looking for a car to buy a Bob's, I didn't get to know him or race him many times because I was pretty new to the hobby, but he left an impression on me and his craftsmanship certainly did. So I wanted to purchase something that maybe I didn't think was going to be the best car in his fleet, but that showcased his ability to build a unique car and kind of think outside the box. And that's this car, which just so happened to be one of the best slot car purchases I've ever made. I've done multiple podium finishes with this car and even won a couple races in our highly competitive here local group, so many of which also race McFarland chassis. So anyway, this is the body the car was built for originally. They used to run a 962 enduro race locally here where you had to have headlights, and they ran certain sections of the race in the dark, but they're scratch built, inline, Super 16D powered brass cars. And I haven't seen any of the other remaining cars. I know they're out there from this series, but this is how I got the car, with this nice Tamiya Coke body. I haven't got to race it with this body because that race is no longer being done, but I have raced it with I race it with a NASCAR body, I race it with a sports car body, and both of those it does just phenomenal with. I run an Enzo and I run a modern Chevrolet or Ford Fusion NASCAR body. So anyway, we're going to pull the body off and show you the unique features of this chassis. So our local club here is pretty unique. We run hard body scale cars with small tire, Super 16D power. They're just really fast cars. They drive in a super unique way. Compared to the thing like an H&R or something that you might be used to in hard body racing. This is just a totally different experience. A 16D Flexi or something like that would be of similar pace on to a car like this. So anyway, what I found was unique about this car, and the reason why I purchased it was, one, I was immediately drawn to this use of the circuit board here. I learned that this was here actually for easy wiring of the lights to the front, so you could just tack your two wires on there and then still have easily replaceable motor wires and all this type of stuff. It also works super good with the action of the chassis, which I'll show you. So it allows really nice guide flexion because the motor wires are the same length and they're short, so the tension of these wires can hold the guide straight. And it also helps with the spring function of this center plate. So as you can see here, I'm going to try to get it in the view. this center section of the chassis is completely separated and just on slides. And this motor wire configuration helps hold it to the front of the chassis, which probably isn't super necessary for performance, but it is nice when you're putting a body on it that it kind of takes a natural set to the same place every time. So as you can see here, again, this center slide, it's kind of hard to hold and show you, but it's basically supported by this wire here that runs across, and this is notched out so you can easily oil the end bell of your motor, which is pretty nice. This piece running across connects the pans, but is also the bump stop for the forward movement of this pan. So that's what keeps it from going too far forward. It also has small slides right here that guide the motor wires. So this is a very stiff motor box compared to what you might see normally. And then the center pans of this chassis, sorry, I'm kind of off. You'll see another unique thing is this is a 92 thousandths center pan, 1/8 inch mid pan, and then a 92 thousandths again outer pan. And they're connected. Excuse me, I thought I cleaned this up pretty decent, but you can see that the inner mid pan here and the outer pan are simply connected by this 78 thousandths wire that runs across, or the length of the chassis. And what's really interesting about what he did here is he connected it to the outer pan at the back and the mid pan at the front. So this essentially means that these pans are flexible, and it's kind of hard to hold it in a way that will flex them. There we go. So you can see that flexion, and that flexion is really important to the performance of the car. And then to stop those from moving too far, you have these 90-degree wires which keep the pans from dropping below ride height when the weight of the body is on there. But then there's this small little 032 wire going into a 332 tube, and that's what limits the actual flex of the pan. So you can see that pretty well right there. So super interesting idea. Not the standard flex that you would be used to, like in a hinged car. It's actually hinged longitudinally instead, or I mean, like in a horizontal manner instead of in a lateral manner. So really, one of the things that grabbed me about the car that I thought was just really unique when I was looking at it. Next up, a lot of our true scale, or what we call true scale cars, and all of McFarland's cars typically mounted with this 062 bent wire front end. Works really well. It allows compression of the front suspension, and you can see how much of this will compress. Gets the pans nice and low in the corners. But what was really interesting about this is the addition on this car of this little sway bar link. So it's a 332 tube going over the two front axles, and it actually ties the left and the right axle together. So in a normal like quick turns, it actually transfers weight left to right, but then in like a more compressed turn, it seems to really allow the car to achieve an even lower ride height by transferring weight to both sides of the car. So pretty unique feature also of this car. I'm guessing that when it was completed, he thought it was too heavy with these 1/8 inch inner pans, so these holes were drilled. Has a forged motor bracket, only 332 width. 3/4 of an inch width right here. So pretty tight with a spur crown gear in there. You have to be really careful. And that 1/8 inch pan extends all the way to the back of the motor bracket. It's also disconnected in the left and right manner, so it's hard to see, but there is some movement here, and that's in this hinge. And that allows a left to right movement of the center chassis. So essentially you're stretching this spring, which returns it to center, but when entering a turn, it does allow some separation of the chassis, which reduces the load on that guide, and yeah, this car just stays in the slot just phenomenally well. So one of the things that I think is so effective about this design, and something that many people could replicate, sorry guys, I'm struggling to keep focused in enough that you can see everything here. One thing that I think is really effective about this design is when you're slowing down the car, it tends to extend, right? Lateral G-force deceleration, more weight on the rear tire like this, and then when you accelerate, it actually runs the motor up against the pan. So you accelerate, everything moves forward, and you get more of this weight over the rear tire. So this car just seems to be very dynamic in a way that you enter a turn and it rotates very well. I wouldn't say it's loose. You can definitely get it to hook up, really well, but the balance of the car just feels like something that is very difficult to achieve without this, pretty movable center pan. And this is really lightweight compared to the weight that's suspended out further. So anyway, this is the McFarland chassis. Super proud to own this car. Every time I run it, I just can't believe how awesome the performance is, and I hope to keep putting it in the winner circle as much as possible. It's getting harder all the time as everybody learns these tricks and gets faster and builds new cars, and but this car with some tuning has been just an absolute weapon for me. So that's it. That's this episode of Chassis Focus. I have some other McFarland cars and some of my personal builds that I hope to share with you guys if you're interested in this type of content. So thanks for tuning in. By the way, if we get to 1,000 likes on this page, which we're getting dang close to, that unlocks some cool features that I can use to try to create some better content. I'm hoping to stay more consistent with you guys. I'm surprised by the people who are still subscribing to this page with no content coming out recently. But that shows me that this slot car content is something that you guys want. So hopefully I can keep doing it for you. Take it easy.